Hello and welcome to the Soulful Mamas podcast. You're with your host Maria, and welcome to this week's episode. Before we dive in, just a quick check-in. How are you? How are you doing? Those of you in the Southern Hemisphere, how green is your world right now? It's that height of spring. It's just green everywhere. There are such beautiful spring flowers and birds everywhere, baby animals everywhere. I know I say this each time, but my gosh, every week it's just another explosion of growth, it would seem. And so vibrant, so beautiful, so exciting. So hopefully you're enjoying that. And my friends in the north, you're in my favorite season. You're in autumn, fall, as you call it, over there. And I hope you're enjoying the beauty, equal beauty, in a different form and way, but it's equally as beautiful. So enjoy it and embrace those colors and the gift of the season of what fall, the falling of the leaves, what Mother Earth is showing you, and the season you're stepping into. So either side of the wheel, either side of the planet, we are experiencing the wonder of our beautiful Mother Earth right now. Right, so today's episode, I have a lovely guest for you today, Jasmine Monk, and she is a mum of a beautiful 2.5-year-old boy, and her story that she shares is so beautiful. It's so honest, vulnerable, real, relatable, and it's all of those experiences where, you know, she doesn't gloss over anything. She really explains. You can feel you're on a journey with her for sure. So it's wonderful. And we're going from the Akashic Records to home birthing, to blood transfusions, to all sorts of things. And yet constantly she just has this beautiful energy. You can just sense this energy about her that is just joyful. Yeah, joyful. There's just so much joy and beauty around her being, her words. So without any further ado, I bring to you the wonderful Jasmine. Jasmine, welcome. Welcome to the Soulful Mamas podcast. So good to see you.
Thank
Oh,
you for
and I
having
love
me.
your background as well. It's so beautiful. It's just stunning. I love
Thank
it.
you.
Would you like to share with us a little bit about you, or where you are as well, where in the world on that globe there, and your journey into motherhood and what that looked like?
Of course, yeah. So thank you for having me. I'm excited to be having this conversation. I was saying before, I've done a few podcasts, but none of them have been motherhood focused. So most of the time I'm talking about my business or soul purpose work specifically. So it's really nice to have a space to be able to come on and share specifically about my journey into motherhood, because of course it has been such a huge initiation and a huge part of my journey over the past
Mm.
few years. So yeah, my little boy Kylan is 2.5 now, which I can't believe. It feels it feels like he was just born yesterday. So yeah, my name's Jasmine. I am a coach, a healer, and a mystic, and I work with women, mainly other kind of healers, light workers, medicine women, to really activate their purpose, power, and potential. I've been doing this for 4.5 years now. So I did have my business before I had Kai, but he definitely propelled my work into another dimension, which we'll talk about, I think, later on in the conversation. So yeah, I was kind of in the early phases and stages of my business, I suppose, before having Kai. I was quite deep into my personal healing journey. I've been on a personal healing journey for around 7 years now, I would say. My partner and I, so Kylan's dad and I, have been together a long time. We've been together since we were 19 and we're 33 now. So we've grown up together.
Yep.
And back then, so my journey into motherhood, so preconception, I started working with the Akashic Records. I don't know if you know much about the Akashic Records, but
Yep.
just to kind of give a brief overview for anyone who doesn't know what they are. So the Akashic Records fell on my path Can I remember how? Yeah, so the coaching qualification that I was doing at the time, someone on my course was training in the Akashic Records, and she put out a call to offer some practice sessions with people, and I volunteered. And she read my Akashic Records, and I was blown away by by everything that came up, all of this stuff about past lives, about my partner and I's relationship and the journey that we were on, and it blew my mind. And I was like, right, I need to learn how to read and access the Akashic Records, and I started to kind of open myself up to that possibility. And then, literally within a couple of weeks, a healer that I was working with at the time put out that she was running an Akashic Records course. And I was like, okay, talk about divine timing. So,
Yes.
of course, I booked onto that straight away. And I did my training, and my whole life turned itself upside down, let's just say. So, through doing my own healing work within the Akashic Records, so many of the friendships that I had at the time kind of fell away because I realized now they weren't in alignment with the person that I was becoming. My family relationships really shifted, and my relationship with my partner was the main one. It basically brought up a lot of stuff that had gone unspoken about or brushed under the rug over the years, and brought things up that really needed to be spoke about and dealt with and faced head on. So it was a really challenging time, actually. At points I thought we were going to separate, but we didn't. We ended up kind of reuniting and really coming back together and refocusing on what we wanted for the future
Mm.
from each other. It was really, really powerful. We did some couples counseling together. I was doing the healing work in the Akashic Records as well. And it's crazy. I went from thinking I was going to be ending the relationship and moving out within a few months to, right, we're ready to try for a baby. It was such a huge shift in such a short space of time. But it was like through the couples counseling, we really realized, that is what we wanted. And it was almost like then his soul, I believe, entered the space and was like, yep, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready now, guys.
Yeah, you guys are ready, so I'm ready. Let's go.
Right. Yeah. And it was so strange because we knew we wanted to have children, but we weren't at that point, or before I started working with the Akashic Records, we weren't thinking it was going to be a very we were thinking it was going to be a bit further ahead in the future, maybe like 5 years from then, or 3 years at least. Like, we weren't thinking it was going to be then. But for both of us, the knowing just hit us with such a huge intensity. It was like we both just felt so clear, and I'm getting chills as I'm sharing this. We
Yeah,
both
me
just felt,
too.
yeah, that it was the time. And I believe that his soul started connecting with me within my Akashic Records. I could feel his presence. So yeah, we started the journey, and within 3 months, I was pregnant. And even the way that I found out I was pregnant was really, really magical as well. So obviously I was continuing to do my work within the Akashic Records, and I was receiving guidance that before we conceived this baby, I needed to do some more healing within my family line. So with both of my parents as well, because there was some trauma, quite a big trauma, from on my parents' side. They had a stillbirth child before I was born. So the whole time my mum was pregnant with me, I was aware that she was carrying a lot of trauma, and that's been something kind of that I've been working through in my journey. So I got the guidance that I needed to do some of that healing work with my parents. So I went ahead and did it. I did a session with my dad, which was really powerful. And then I had a trip booked for this August with my mum to Glastonbury. And I thought, let me save my mum's healing session for then. It will be really powerful for me to do it when we're together in person in Glastonbury. So that was the plan. Went to Glastonbury, was there for the Lionsgate portal in 2021. I did the healing session with my mum on the 8th of the 8th. And then the day after that, my period was a little bit late. I was like, oh, let me just take a let me take a pregnancy test. And on the 9th, the day after I'd done the healing session with my mum, was the day I got the positive
Oh
pregnancy
my
test.
gosh.
I know. So it was all so,
Wow.
so divinely guided, and so, so powerful. And my mum and I were just getting confirmation from spirit that whole trip that we were together. It was really, yeah, it was really, really, really powerful. And I could feel the healing that he was bringing, not just for me,
Yeah.
but for my partner, even for my partner's relationship with his parents. Like, I could feel it from day dot, the power
Mm.
that his soul holds and carries, and he's continued to initiate that healing for all of us.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is just magic, isn't it? I've just got these full body little
I know.
goose truth bumps, like up and down, up and down. Amazing. Wow. And how amazing that you're able to heal the generational wounding or trauma that was carried for your parents as well, and that they were so open
Yeah,
to receiving this. Oh,
yeah.
there's
And that
hope, isn't
continued,
there?
definitely. Yeah, that really continued with the birth itself as well. That kind of theme of healing this trauma that was in the family line. So I'll talk a little bit about that as well, because that's another story that's gonna bring goosebumps up the birth
Yes.
itself. So yeah, so the whole pregnancy, I was very clear about the type of birth that I wanted. I wanted a home birth, with minimal intervention. I wanted it really to be ritualistic, like a ceremony. And I'd really planned in great detail how I wanted the birth to be. I was feeling really safe and secure in that vision, even though people around me were quite anxious. Even my partner was very anxious. I think he would have preferred it if we were choosing to have a hospital birth. So it was always we were striking a balance between like how much intervention to have,
Mhm.
because I wanted minimal, and my partner wanted more. So I was striking a balance. I declined a couple of scans. I had a couple, declined quite a lot of things, but kind of we still had some contact with the hospital to keep his mind at ease mainly. My parents I could tell, were quite anxious, but they didn't really project that onto me. They were anxious, but they were also supportive of my plan. I think for them, because they'd had a very negative experience in the hospital, for them maybe it felt a little bit refreshing that I was planning a different type of birth. But I could tell, they were a little bit anxious. But I worked really hard to protect my energy and to protect my mindset so I could remain, in my truth and in my power. And it was all going really well until the very end of the pregnancy. So I was around 40 weeks. I suddenly started to get anxious, kind of really for maybe like the second time in the pregnancy. There'd been one time earlier on in the pregnancy. I remember it was around a full moon. I all of a sudden started to get quite anxious, and I went into the hospital just to have my movements checked. It was all fine. So that was the first time I'd gone in. And then right towards the end, at about 40 weeks, I think a midwife asked me about the movements, and the response that I gave, she seemed like her response seemed like she thought I should have been feeling more movements, basically. So it kind of raised some anxiety, even though I now know that he was just quite lazy and quite sleepy and not moving much. Yeah, but it sparked my anxiety. So I went in. She encouraged me to go back in to get the movements checked. So I did at 40 weeks. Again, everything was fine, but the hospital protocol was, because it was the second time that I'd gone in for reduced movements, and I was now at 40 weeks, they were recommending at that point induction, which I knew wasn't a route that I wanted to go down. From that point, pressure from the medical team really ramped up. They were saying some quite scary things, actually, some quite threatening things. I was really lucky I had an amazing doula. Like without her, I don't know what I would have done, but she really supported me to advocate for myself and to keep trusting and to keep saying, I still wanted to go for the home birth. My partner started to get really, really anxious, as did my family. And it was really, really, really hard in those last couple of weeks. I had him at 41 plus 6. So it was almost a whole 2 weeks of pressure from the hospital. I was also in really, really severe back pain, to the point that I could hardly walk right towards the end as well. I ended up having another scan, and the scan revealed that he was posterior, so he was back to back, so head facing up. And again, the hospital were like, this is going to make labor really even more painful. And I started to panic. They were still pushing induction, and at that point, I really sat with it, thought about it, just tapped in with my guides in my Akashic Records, and I came to the conclusion that I would rather opt for an elective cesarean section than an induction that potentially could then end up in an emergency C-section. So
Mm.
complete 180 from my plans of a natural home birth to elective cesarean. But I really made peace with it. I really felt good that I was the one making the decisions and that I could still make certain requests and those types of things. So that was the plan. On the 23rd of April, I was booked in for surgery. I was all ready, literally had my surgery socks on, everything. I was like next in the line for surgery, and all of a sudden the lights turned off. All of the electricity turned off. The hospital had a hospital-wide power cut. The first one that they'd had in 25 years. They're like, none of the staff could believe it. They were like, what's going on? Yeah, power cut, only emergency surgery could take place. Yeah, and I'm sure that it was his soul orchestrating that, because he was like, no, this isn't the way that I want to be born. Yeah. So I was just waiting in the hospital. They were like, we're sure the electricity is going to come back on. Like, you just wait here, and as soon as it comes back on, you'll have priority. It didn't come on. It got to the evening. They said, "Oh, you're here now. It's late. You might as well stay in this private room for the night. You might as well stay, and you'll be first on the list for surgery in the morning." So okay. So my partner went off, came back with my all of my crystals, my fairy lights, my diffuser, my speaker. I set the room up all nice. I was like, let's just give it one last try for me to really kind of get in the zone. I was doing my hypnobirthing, playing my music, playing my playlist. I went to sleep that night about midnight, and then at 2:22 a.m. I woke up. My waters broke naturally, and within 7 hours, he was born with some minimal intervention. Really, it was really as close to the birth that I envisaged at home as it could be within the hospital, and it was so powerful. And I realize now that it had to happen that way.
Wow.
And yeah, so healing for my family as well, that it all went, yeah, smoothly and in the way that I really really wanted it to.
That is so beautiful, because that's often not the story for so many. Like, that disempowerment in that time is such a strong theme for many women. And gosh, what a little soul coming in, turning the
I
lights
know,
off.
literally. It was
Ah,
it was crazy. Yeah, and even my doula, she wasn't particularly spiritual, but even she couldn't believe it. And even she said she really felt like this presence, like this extra
yeah.
an orchestration at play that no one could really describe. So yeah, it was really, really powerful. There was a little bit of, well, not a little bit, I'm minimizing. There was there's how do I word it? After he was born was challenging because he had aspirated on some meconium, so he came out not crying, and all of the lights came on, panic, stress. They whipped him off him. I couldn't have immediate skin to skin or delayed cord cutting like I really wanted. And they weren't reassuring. No one was saying anything. No one was reassuring me that he was okay. And I went into panic because my mind immediately went to the experience that my parents had had,
Mm.
and I went into pure panic, and I lost a lot of blood and needed a transfusion. But as soon as I saw that he was okay, as soon as he started crying, I was just, even though everyone was then really worried about me, I think I lost 60% of my blood. So it was big blood loss. Yeah.
Oh,
Everyone was panicking about me, but I just felt this warmth of God, I think it was, this like comfort. And I just knew, I'm getting chills again. I
yeah,
knew that
you
with
do.
him, everything was going to be fine. And then, once like as soon as I could, we had skin to skin and breastfed, and it was really, really beautiful. But yeah, it was scary, and still something that probably I have to process because of the panic that I felt, I guess, after having the amazing, empowering birth, exactly kind of mostly how I wanted it. And
Mm.
then that real like panic immediately after he was born. And that really did affect my postpartum period for sure, which was challenging, which I'll probably move on to speaking about in a moment.
Yes, I can imagine. The Yeah. Thankfully, you did have that empowering birth too. Otherwise, if that had been completely in the opposite, and then going
Just
into that as well, would have been probably, you'd been in a different space even now. most
Yeah.
likely still trying to process. And it's a big thing, that trigger of, that fear response to something that's quite real. It is a real thing that happened, but holding on from, your parents' experience too. So yeah, it'd be interesting going forward if you have more children, if
Mhm.
how that
No.
looks as well. Yeah. Right. So how did that inform your postpartum?
I think there was lots of aspects to it. I think, firstly, I think I hadn't realized, or I'd minimized the physical impact of probably of losing that much blood, like what impact that had on my energy. It also transpired, I found this out as I was discharged from hospital. It transpired that I'd given birth with COVID as well, which I didn't know until they discharged me. So I had COVID, I'd lost a lot of blood. So I was exhausted, like absolutely exhausted. And I knew I was going to be exhausted after having a baby, but I wasn't prepared for just like how battered physically I was going to feel. I was in a lot of pain. I did need stitches as well, so I was in a lot of pain down below as well. Like my whole body was aching, and I felt so vulnerable in my postpartum. And I don't think my partner and I had spent enough, if any, time really preparing for that. Our focus was so much on preparing for the birth itself. We kind of minimized the preparation that we needed to make for the postpartum, and we kind of went into that quite blind. My partner has his own business, so he couldn't take much time off work at all, which was really hard for me. I understand why that had to be the case, but he wasn't as available for me as I really, really needed. I've struggled with breastfeeding in the early days as well. Again, I just thought that was something that was going to come so easily and so naturally, but the pain that I experienced with the breastfeeding, yeah, was really, really intense. And I so wanted to do it, but there were so many times that I wanted to give up breastfeeding. Again, thank goodness for my doula, who really, really supported me. I feel so grateful and blessed that I had that support, because if I hadn't, I definitely wouldn't have been able to persevere with breastfeeding, which was such a big thing for me. I'm still feeding him now, at nighttime at 2.5. So that's been such a huge, huge, huge part of my journey. But yeah, I felt so vulnerable. I felt in postpartum like a child again, almost. And I was really craving someone just coming in and looking after me, which I know now is really how we should be supported and treated
Absolutely.
in our society. You don't see that. You just see women getting on with it. And I think if that was kind of what everyone expected it was going to be like for me. So yeah, that would definitely be something that I would spend so much more time planning carefully next time, to make sure that there's things in place so that I can feel nourished and supported, because I didn't. And I think it culminated in me feeling very anxious. Yeah, I was tearful. I was feeling like I wasn't coping, even though I was, like, he was thriving, but I was feeling like I wasn't breastfeeding right. I was doubting myself. But it, like, there was no evidence to suggest that, but I was just really convinced that it shouldn't be that hard,
Mm.
as hard as I found it. I think after about 6 weeks, things started to shift, and my hormones started to settle, and I suddenly, gradually, started to feel more myself. But it took a good 6 weeks for me actually to come back down to earth as well. I think I felt so out of my body for the first six
Yeah.
weeks as well. And now looking back, I think probably I should have done could have done more energy work, or outsourced someone to come in and do some energy work to bring my soul back into my body. But at the time, like, all my spiritual practices went out of the window. I was in
Oh,
pure
yes.
survival mode. Yeah. So those are the things that I would definitely do differently next time, for
And
sure.
isn't that where, if we had that village,
Yes.
there, they could remind us or support, or provide the scaffolding of that for us, because it's pretty much everybody I've spoken to. That is true of for everyone. Whatever tools, practices you had,
Mm.
they get forgotten.
Yeah.
And you're just literally in survival, and you're sore, and you're healing, and you're recovering, and you're so tired, and there's no manual, and you don't really know what you're doing. And that fourth trimester is something that really isn't that spoken about. It's all about, like you say, the birth and buying the stuff for after the
Right.
birth. but you don't
Yeah,
even need the stuff for most of it. It's more about, yeah,
yeah.
those little
So,
thing or
yeah, my
yeah,
partner
it's
and I had
huge.
that discussion recently. We were like, do you remember how stressed we were trying to make him sleep in the bassinet, those first few nights? And it's like now we wouldn't even have we co-slept from like a few weeks old, but now we're like we wouldn't even have that, now we would just do whatever we needed to do. But we were like it was like that, it was like, oh, but his grandmother bought him that, like we don't want it to go to waste. Let's try and put him down in the
Yes.
bassinet, just yeah,
Yeah.
crazy. And like you
All of
said,
that.
you don't need so many of the things that you worry about and yeah, spend time thinking about
Oh,
prior.
I
Yeah.
know. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's one of the reasons I'm having these conversations is to try and reweave the village and just because so many people, myself included, will relate to exactly what you're talking about with your experience, everything, the pain, the not sure what's happening, and you just need that nourishing.
Yeah.
The the mother needs to be mothered as
Yeah.
she's learning to become a mother. And that's the part. And when you're prior to that, if you've been I don't know, whatever you've done previously, successful in your own work and
Mm,
people just think, oh, she'll be fine. I mean, I was
that
a
was it.
teacher, so
Yeah.
people just thought, oh, she'll be fine. Yeah, great with kids. Yes, but
Yeah.
not babies that have happened to have birthed, and I don't know to
Yeah, I used to
do.
be a social worker and a nanny. I was a nanny at the time that I gave birth. So everyone was like, yeah, she'll be fine. Like she knows what she's doing.
Yes,
Yeah.
no.
But,
And then you kind of feel like, oh, should I know what I'm doing?
yeah.
And then asking for help is really hard because it's like a sign of weakness almost. But that vulnerability that you're talking about is so real. It's such a true experience and feeling. It's wonderful though that you had a doula. Is that something, is that common practice in the UK that people have doulas?
It's becoming more popular, but I wouldn't say common practice because it is quite expensive. So not everyone would, most people wouldn't have the means to be able to afford one, I would say. I mean, people are becoming more aware of even what they are and what they do, but still definitely not common practice whatsoever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Similar to New Zealand actually, but I know the people that have used them. A friend of mine is one actually. Um, yeah, they're just invaluable. You know what that, or the friend that is a doula or slash was, she was putting so much into it. She realized she had to pull back because of her own family. But
Mine was
it's
similar.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so passionate about her soul purpose work. We've stayed really close actually as well. We've remained friends. I'm actually going to visit her in a few weeks, so that's really lovely as well that we've
Uh,
maintained that connection. Yeah.
yeah, that bond, that connection's quite deep because that
Mm.
vulnerability that you're experiencing, you're trusting her with that to hold that space for you.
Yeah.
Um, when other people perhaps can't because their roles are, it's not in the job description, so to speak, it's yeah, yeah. So that's such a gift. And also for your family and your partner to see how supportive it was having her there
Mm.
as well. And they can, and it's their conversations talking about, to their friends or whoever about the work that a doula does, because yeah, I know here in New Zealand it's not as, there's a bit of a midwife doula
Right.
um thing.
It's similar. No, it's similar here. Yeah, there was
Yeah.
a bit of conflict, let's say, between the two
Yeah,
roles. It's so sad, isn't
it
it?
is. It's interesting, but it's yeah, hasn't quite found its full groove yet, but it will find
I
that
trust.
harmony. Wow. And then from there, where did that like
Yeah.
lead you
Where
into?
It changed me so much as a person. It's difficult to put into words, really, how the initiation has changed me. But I would say within my business before having Kai, I definitely wasn't taking it super seriously. I wasn't as committed as I am now. I was more seeing it as, something I was doing for fun, with no real plan or no real focus. And that that shifted as soon as he was born, to be honest. It was almost like a fire was lit inside of me in terms of my mission in supporting women and empowering women and helping women create the lives that they truly desire. It really, yeah, lit a flame within. And I would say since having him, it's pushed me, not in an unhealthy way, but it's pushed me in a healthy way to really take my business more seriously, to treat it as a business, not just a side hustle, and to really call in the consistency and the stability that we need as a family, but to also have the impact that I know that I'm meant to have for other women as well. So it's definitely supported me in that way. And people always like, oh, you must have so much, less time to focus on your business since having him. Like, no, like I just use my time more wisely. Like before having him, I would not prioritize, and I would faff around and do other things. Whereas now I know that if I have childcare or he's with his nan, no, that is the time that I yes, take time for myself, but also be regimented with myself and make sure that I'm working towards my goals, because I don't have that time readily available. So the time that I do have is precious, and I make so much more use of it than I did before having him. So it's really helped me in that sense. It's really helped me in terms of me finding my voice, that whole initiation of me needing to advocate for myself really strongly in the run up to the birth, during the birth. I am no longer a people pleaser, that's for sure. I would say probably up until having him, I still had some elements of the people pleasing tendencies. Like that's gone completely now. Like I'm not afraid to speak up. I'm not afraid to advocate my needs, and I really do feel like he's initiated a lot of that within me.
Wonderful.
My relationship with my partner, he of course has a huge role in terms of us no longer sweeping things under the rug and making sure that there's open communication. So many things. It's difficult to put into words, but I'm definitely not the same version. That goes without saying. But there's so many different layers to the way in which I'm not the same person as prior to motherhood. I feel like it really helped me come into myself. I didn't lose anything. I know lots of people talk about losing aspects of themselves in motherhood, but I actually feel like I found so many aspects of myself. And yeah, I would probably say I didn't lose anything. I feel really grateful that I've been able to have that experience, and that I'm able to share that and to own that truth.
Yeah. And the awareness of, obviously through the work that you've done, the awareness of the gift of that. And it's not that's beautiful. That's such growth as well. And that that's a really big jump made into mother. Like you were really fully embracing all of what that entails. So yeah, that's wonderful. And I can imagine for your clients as well that you stepping into your power more, and that you sound very solid, and that consistency and that surety and that strength, and it feels really safe for people to work with you or be supported and guided by you, that they know there's a truth about it. So yeah, you can be held in that journey, that process of whatever you're taking them through or on. So yeah, that's beautiful.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, a lot of clients have said they feel really nurturing, motherly energy from me. Even before I had Kai, that was a comment that I used to receive quite a lot. You're like, well, you're like a divine mother, like holding us and nurturing us.
Yeah.
Actually becoming a mother has strengthened that energy, I suppose. So yeah, thank you for picking up on that and sharing.
No, I can feel it. So when you work with people now, like what does that look like? What do people do, and how do they find you or the work that you do?
Course, yes. There's a few different ways that people can work with me. So it's really under the umbrella of soul purpose activation of purpose, power, and potential. So the two main tools that I use are the Akashic Records, which I've spoken about, which is really the kind of energetic work that I do. And then I work with a tool called Soul Plan Numerology. as well, which is a system of life purpose analysis, a system of numerology based on the numerology of the birth name. That was a tool that I found right at the beginning of my journey around 6 or 7 years ago now, and I really use that as the basis for all of the work that I do with women, because it really uncovers and maps out the soul's journey, including all of the initiations that we've chosen to experience, the challenges, the gifts that we have, and our goals. So I use the soul plan numerology with coaching clients, healing clients, to really gain a greater understanding of who they are, where they're at, and what their goals and visions are. So I'm also a certified coach as well. So on coaching journeys that I do with clients, I weave in the soul plan numerology and the Akashic Records healing. I'm mainly working now with other business owners, but I don't just work with business owners. I work with women who are looking to find their purpose, activate their purpose, come into their power. So we use a combination of those tools. I also hold regular women's circles and retreats as well. A huge part of my soul purpose is sisterhood and community and bringing like-minded women together. That was something that I was quite actively doing before I had Kai, with the retreats and things. I actually, the day after I found out I was pregnant with him, I was hosting a retreat for 11 women. So that was extra power with finding out I was pregnant. Then I kind of put a hold on the in-person stuff up until now. And over the kind of past 6 months, I've been doing a lot more of the in-person things here in the UK, but I am looking to branch out over the next couple of years as well, because yeah, the in-person community and space holding is a huge part of my mission as well. So yeah, lots of different things. It's ever shifting and evolving, of course, as I am as
Yes.
well. Those are the kind of the main tools that I really work with, and yeah, with the intention to really empower women to come into their power and their truth and their authenticity, and to really live lives that they desire and that they deserve and are worthy of.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. And it feels like, over the woman I speak to, more and more people are embracing this way, either seeking it, like what you offer, or they themselves are offering a similar thing, because there's a knowing that there's a need for this, which is great. That rise of that feminine, the strength of the feminine as well, to come back through and get back into balance a bit more. So it's wonderful. It's such needed work. So yeah, thank you for all of that. Is there anything else that you wanted to add in there that you'd like to share with either your motherhood journey or the work that you do?
I think so. I feel like I've shared everything that felt.
Well, there's just one thing I would like to know, though. Well, there's probably more than one, but for now, what do you do for yourself to keep your soul full?
Good question. Spending time with other women, with like-minded women, I would say sisterhood is such a huge part of me keeping my soul full. And I really prioritize that. I really prioritize spending time with my sisters in circle, socializing, having fun as well. I think remembering to have fun as a mum is really important. I did lose that for a little bit. I would say probably the first 8 months to a year, I really didn't prioritize having fun. Whereas now, that I make sure that I prioritize letting my hair down, maybe going to an ecstatic dance or going for dinner with my friends, and really filling up my cup in that sense is always a priority for me. And then my own spiritual practices, I suppose, the work that I do for myself within my Akashic
Yeah.
record, getting out in nature is really, really important for me. Getting to the sea if I can, when the weather allows it in the UK, those kinds of things. And yeah, actually spending time alone as well is quite
Yes.
important for me. I'm a Pisces, so I need quite a lot of alone time. So even recently, when my little boy was with his grandparents for a short trip, I booked myself a solo trip to Glastonbury. And people are like, you're going literally by yourself? I'm like, yeah, I can't think of anything better than going away
Oh,
for a couple of nights, like just by myself. So yeah, those are the kinds of things that I am quite boundaried with, and I make sure that I get that time because I need it. I really do need quite a lot of alone time to be able
yeah,
to have, in business and in my role as a mom as well.
absolutely. It's non-negotiable, isn't it? And you can just see your family and your son obviously benefit from you being filled up like that. That permission to pause or some time on your own is such good medicine, but it's something that often mums will not entertain allowing themselves to have. But I'm glad that you spoke to that, because it's something that the more it becomes normalized, that this is really important, it's really nourishing, and beneficial for everybody, the more others can do the same. So
About it. It's been an interesting part of my journey, because at first people would really question, like, oh, but don't you really miss your son, like, when you're away from him? And yes, of course I do, but that doesn't stop me from doing it. Like, I don't miss him so much that I'm not going to then spend time apart from him. But I had to work through a bit of guilt, actually, because people were questioning, like, why didn't I want to spend every minute of the day with him? That's something that I've really had to kind of work through in my own mind. But again, I think it's conditioning and society that really makes us believe that we have to be spending, well, in one part, every waking minute with our children, but then on the other side of it, that they're in full-time childcare, which, it also feels strange to me
all
as
of
well.
it, it's
Like,
just,
yeah, no, you can't be right.
it comes
Yeah.
from every angle. And so
Yeah.
all you need to do is go within and find what's right for you, your truth. I mean, you being more of that Piscean energy, it's essential, really, that you have more of that. And I'm Taurus, but I need more of that earthy, grounded. I need that for myself. But other signs will be different. They'll be Gemini, different. So they might be okay with having less alone time. But yeah, it's working with yourself and what our inner compass needs and is guiding us towards, right? Yeah. Oh, so beautiful. Jasmine, thank you so much for your time today. And I know it's a juggle with, business and childcare and all of that. And I appreciate your time from across the seas. And yeah, I look forward to following your journey, and who knows, bump into you in Glastonbury one day. I'd love that.
Hopefully, I'd love that too. Thank you for having me.
Jasmine is just a delight. I really enjoyed this conversation, and we covered a lot, touched on many different topics, and you're most likely intrigued as to find out more perhaps about the work that Jasmine does and what she offers. So all of her details are in the show notes below. So go and look her up, and join her world on social media. And it's really fascinating and wonderful work. I love the way she was so open and willing to share all of the experiences. And that's the true journey of a mother. It's not all good and wonderful. There are some challenges. There are some aspects that we need to traverse and navigate through. The more we can talk about it, the more we can normalize some of these feelings that we may have, the more we realize that we're not alone, and we can try and, reweave this village of support and checking in with your friends who are becoming mums. Even a mother for the second or third time, it doesn't mean that everything's going to be smooth sailing for them. They still have to navigate their other children, and there's, each time there's another layer. And Jasmine did talk about the different layers of, it's almost like shedding skins when you become a mum, and like the previous life, the previous version of yourself, and you are becoming a new version of you. And it's finding that balance point, that equilibrium. And I do find with mums that is part of that initiation, when we're really trying to hold on to our old self, as well as be this new version of being the mum. And it doesn't mean having to let things go, but you're growing and evolving into this new version of you. And on your path, your journey is now, stepping in from that maidenhood role into the realm of mother. And there's a big difference there. And so really being able to honor that and acknowledge that. So it was, yeah, I did like how Jasmine has navigated this really beautifully, and there's really wise awareness around her journey. So it'd be good to continue to follow and see how that transpires. So there's a few little takeaways. As always, there's many. I just got a couple here just to point out and remind you of. And one is remembering to have fun as a mum. It's so important. Number 2, allowing some alone time for yourself. And then I'll put a little without any guilt attached, because that is the tricky part. It's okay to need it, want it, all of that. And one last thing is finding your voice, speaking your truth, and advocating for your needs that you need, maybe for yourself and your children as well. So that is a really big thing. I know working with women is this throat restriction that many of us have. So really working on strengthening that muscle of speaking out. Lots of little pearls in there, everyone. You may need to listen to it again. If you know of someone who might resonate with this episode, then please feel free to share it. Continue the conversation in the comments, or you can find me, Maria at parentingwithsoul.com, email, socials. And yeah, let's keep the conversations I'm asking for, just to keep the connection going, because connection is so important. And that's how the more connections is when we're reweaving, and that village gets bigger and stronger and more supported it can feel. So in the meantime, have a really beautiful soul-filling week ahead, and I will see you next week.